It is something that you will understand why this exchange is so vital and where it has reached where it has. Please. Good things come to those who wait. Okay, so any minute now, we will iron out a technical glitch, and I promise you it's worth waiting for. You know, there's this old saying I told this church today: the best laid plans of mice and men sometimes go awry. Okay, so this is
Question of Marlene is like the protagonist. Marlene is a force of nature.
Very industrious and hardworking.
Marlene was always a lady. Once she came, the work never stops.
I remember most about
The street fights that could be here for the whole day. I guess it was everyone had a very infectious laugh. That warmth is Marlene Street Forest specific. I think that is our strongest attribute.
Honestly, I saw the exchange as an institution. While it's not government, but I saw the exchange as an institution for Jamaica.
When the position of manager, of the general manager of the care, I didn't see her application. So I said, Mrs. Franklin, let's see your application on the position, what is it? I will prepare your resume and I will send you your application. So I prepared her resume, sent in her application. She was interviewed and of course she was successful.
The thing that comes to my mind is that in the pursuit of excellence, one person can make it.
That's money come from country, right? That's money come from Portland. And there's a specific kind of personality traits I find Portlanders have. First of all, they're very manners, which I guess you could say, country people on the whole very manners. But also very grounded and concerned about reputation.
And throughout my time here at Stock Exchange, I think I've seen no change in how welcoming and how comforting, though firm, that she is.
That warmth is Marlene Street Forest specific. She carries it with her.
Jamaica need to formally thank her for her service.
It's a real pleasure for me, and a privilege in fact, to say thank you to Mrs. Marlene Street Forest and her team. And she has a really marvelous team around, and she'll tell you all the time, it's my team that makes me look so good, but I know that she's a great leader of that team.
It's been an absolute pleasure working with you, and that doesn't mean it's been easy. You are a motivated force of nature, and it has been my pleasure working with you. Challenging your thoughts, having my challenge, you challenge the board, and the exchange to move to new areas.
So now I'm expecting to see you in a prominent role in Jamaica.
I would like to be remembered as someone who is a team player. Understanding people, understanding that they are at the base, very important to organizations. And so I would like to be remembered as that person who understood.
Oh, my first impression of Marlene. Marlene is quite the protagonist. Marlene is a force of nature.
She's very industrious and hardworking.
Marlene was always a leader.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've just seen a remarkable woman whose leadership, discipline, discretion, and daring have helped us move forward to make the Jamaica Stock Exchange a global powerhouse. Please help me applaud the managing director of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, Dr. Marlene Street.
Mr. Michael Anthony, Master of Ceremonies, and I'll be calling some of the names of the persons who are not yet here. I'm just setting the stage. The Most Honorable Dr. Andrew Wilness, Prime Minister, Honorable Favour Williams, Minister of Finance and the Public Service, other members of the Cabinet, Mr. Julian Robinson, Opposition Spokesman, Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, Dr. Peter Phillips, Member of Parliament and former Leader of the Opposition, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Mr. Stephen Whittingham, Chairman of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, Mr. Stephen Gooden, Deputy Chairman of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, Professor Neville Ying, Chairman of Jamaica Social Stock Exchange, and other members of the boards of the JSE, JSE, JCSE Trustee Services, and JSSE. Ms. Andre Kelly, General Manager, JCSE and JCSE Trustee Services, Heads of Regional Stock Exchanges and Securities Commissions, Mr. Gregory Fisher, Managing Director, Head of Emerging Markets, Fixed Income and Wealth Management of Jefferies, Mr. Angus Young, Chief Executive Officer, NCB, Capital Markets, Mr. John Stoffers, Managing Director, Chief Investment Strategist, Oppenheimer Asset Management, Reverend Dexter Johnson, National Director, Jamaica Youth Prize, Gooden, Business Development Manager, members of the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Like Michael, I'd love to get a better one. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Good evening. To you who are here in person or have joined us online, it is with great pleasure that I welcome you to the 20th stage of the JSE Regional Conference on Investments and the Capital Markets. It is a pleasure to host this distinguished event, joined by our valued sponsors, Jefferies and NCB Capital Markets Limited, along with other invaluable partners, both long-standing and recent. Your unwavering support has been the heartbeat of this conference, and for that we are grateful. Obviously, you come year on year, and you become addicted. The 20th JSE Regional Conference is a milestone reflecting 2 decades of commitment to advancing our regional financial ecosystem and demonstrates the critical importance of collaboration, innovation, and shared vision. This year's theme, Safeguarding the Capital Markets, People, Progress and Opportunities, speak to the core of our mission as a region. It challenges us to think beyond the present, to strengthen the framework that that governs and sustains our market, and to unlock opportunities to drive inclusive growth and regional financial stability. It also signals to us to cement our commitment to ensuring that the financial system we steward is not only robust and inclusive, but also dynamic and a dynamic driver for sustainable growth. Tonight, we are delighted to share this event is being streamlined by our own CBS cable network. I was told that I had to get that in. A testament to how we are shaping to engage, share, and connect as a region using technology. It also speaks about the potential of technology to transform how our markets operate and evolve. Additionally, we tonight are buoyed by the latest news from the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce that the fourth quarter survey of business and consumer confidence continue to show a positive trend. This is a strong signal of optimism in the market as we explore how to sustain and amplify the momentum through enhanced capital market strategies. At the heart of this year's discussion lies an essential sub-theme: enhancing financial products by innovation for long-term growth. The rapidly evolving global financial landscape challenges us to think differently. And throughout the conference, that probably is what I'd love to do, to challenge you to think differently, to remain competitive and to safeguard the future of our markets. We must look beyond traditional models and embrace innovation as a catalyst for long-term value creation. There are key areas for consideration as we chart this course. One is expanding the product range. The global shift towards diversified financial products, such as green bonds, sustainability-linked securities, and alternative investment funds, demonstrates that innovation and the region must prioritize creating instruments that meet global demand while addressing local needs. Technology-driven innovation like blockchain and tokenized assets are reshaping how we trade, settle, and invest. So while we have started on this journey and we have, things take time, it is important that our financial markets move speedily ahead to create the necessary legislations and framework to embrace it, and for the frameworks created to be workable and not steeped in bureaucracy and red tape. Okay, the Prime Minister is coming at the moment. Could we just acknowledge his presence?
Happy New Year, everyone.
You may be seated. Welcome, Prime Minister. Yes, it's a pleasure as usual to have you here year after year, and we look forward to your delivery. So we were speaking about the different capital markets, and Pierre also said that the legislations are needed to be in place and that they are needed quickly, and they should not be steeped in bureaucracy, but given enough mix to foster creativity and the willingness of market makers to want to move forward. Speak about enhancing financial products. We must move forward to create creative, tailor-made products for the small and medium-sized Finally, we must not forget that for the capital markets to really work for us, it must be inclusive. Therefore, we must innovate financial products and prioritize inclusiveness, ensuring access for individuals who remain underserved by traditional markets. Technology-enabled solutions such as micro-investment platforms can help democratize access to investment opportunities. I'm so happy that the Prime Minister is here when we emphasize micro-investment opportunities. As we reflect on the past 2 decades, it is evident that our capital markets have been instrumental in driving regional growth and stability. However, to safeguard these gains and position ourselves as a global force, we must prioritize long-term.
Conference has proven anything over the past 2 decades is that we don't just discuss challenges, we create actionable solutions. On that note, up next is the chairman of the Jamaica Stock Exchange. He'll be speaking on improving market services through enhanced customer service. Please help me welcome Mr. Stephen Whittingham.
Everyone, welcome to the annual Stock Exchange Conference. Marlene, one of the things about following behind her is that she so beautifully establishes protocol. It is easy for me to follow suit, but I think the Prime Minister is not here, so I'd like to recognize you just to make sure you knew that your presence was acknowledged. I would also like to make special mention of Mr. From St. Kitts, Samuel Duggins, who's seated in the front row here. He is a good personal friend, and I won't bother to go through his entire portfolio because it's so extensive. We just call him the Minister of Everything. I'd also like to just give a special welcome to our primary sponsors from Jefferies and from NCB Capital Market. It's always good to see you, and I know we're going to look forward to hearing your remarks later. This evening, it really is my distinct pleasure to welcome everyone to the launch of this annual conference. It's the 20th occasion of this launch, and I strongly believe that this gathering, which by design is scheduled for the beginning of the year, really plays an instrumental role in setting the tone for the financial markets across the Caribbean by engaging executives, impacting board agendas, and influencing governments. Bharat Anand, who is the vice provost at Harvard, was here in Jamaica last month, and he was also a professor at strategy at HBS while I was there, and he says, if you want growth, innovate. If you want exceptional growth, connect. And it's amazing to see such extensive and impressive group of attendees this evening, and I'm excited to see what will come from the connections that will be made over the next couple of days. In preparing my remarks for this evening, my thoughts kept returning to the critical issue of productivity. Jamaica's challenges with low levels of productivity are not new. For most of our post-independence history, the Jamaican economy has struggled with low levels of productivity, which has relentlessly undermined our efforts to achieve significant growth. Professor David Tennant from the University of the West Indies prepared a report that was entitled Development of a Framework and Roadmap to Drive Productivity in the Public and Private Sectors in Jamaica. Final Global Best Practice Report, Gap Analysis and Recommendations. And if you think the title is long, you should have just imagine how long the report itself is. But on a serious note though, the report is extensive, and after my review, it led me to the inescapable conclusion that Jamaica is actually suffering from a productivity crisis. So productivity is simply the relationship between the outputs and the inputs that are required to generate that output. And the most common measure of productivity that we use is labor productivity, which refers to the output or the value added per worker or per hours worked. And labor productivity is really important because it impacts everything from customer service to manufacturing efficiency to the public sector. It is central to the success of any economy. So why is it that I say that Jamaica has a productivity crisis? Well, I'll share a few excerpts from Professor Tennant's report, and you can decide for yourself. It says that productivity in Jamaica declined in the early 70s, in the mid 1980s, and then throughout the 90s. We're talking about a 30-year span. Second point I want to make from his report, Jamaica's annual labor productivity growth for the period 2001 to 2022 has been predominantly negative. It was decreasing at an average rate of 0.9% since 2001. So even we've been less productive every year on average for the past, say, 20 years. Jamaica has the lowest GDP per person employed in 2021 relative to the other countries in this study. Let's not get into who was in this study. But what was also important was that when you look at how we compared, our GDP was compared to the next lowest company was almost twice our level of productivity. So even compared to peers of ours, we were having a challenge. And Jamaica was the only country in the group for which a person, GDP per person employed in 2021 was lower than in 2000. Okay, so these are some challenging statistics here. Professor Tennant, last one I'll share. Low and declining productivity in Jamaica was ubiquitous across sectors, which means that for all of the economy, we looked at 8 of the 12 sectors, we found that there were challenges with productivity, which means that it wasn't industry specific. It means we have a challenge. So I appreciate, and the master ceremonies said I was coming up here to offer solutions, but I appreciate that what I've shared is a lot to take in, and possibly might be the person, but that's not why I raised it, right? Because it is my hope that this discussion that we renew today will inspire optimism and a belief that we can overcome this challenge. And whenever it comes to Jamaica, I never give up hope. Our beloved country is such an enigma. Little Jamaica has produced the greatest musicians, the fastest athletes, and has a global reputation that in no way correlates to the relative size of our country. Jamaica produced the #1 ranked stock exchange, the best performing stock exchange globally according to Bloomberg, not once, but twice, 2015 and 2018, during which the same period I just told you, we experienced declining productivity. During that same period of declining productivity, Jamaica achieved one of the most remarkable economic turnarounds, from proxy defaults and multiple rounds of debt restructurings, and the country standing on the brink, to becoming a shining global example of fiscal discipline. So on paper, it just doesn't make sense. Something isn't adding up. But what cannot be put on paper is the soul of our people and the strength of the institutions we create when we collaborate. If this is what we are able to achieve with so little, can you imagine what we could do with so much more? Jamaica's economy and society have been plagued with inequality of opportunity. For many, access to capital, to participate in wealth creation and other indices of the formal economy have been limited. One way to address this issue, and also, by the way, the issue of productivity, is with a vested labor force. So hear me. The new board member and a company's banker stepped carelessly over a sanitary footbath on an introductory tour of a listed manufacturing company. I'm sure the Prime Minister does these once a week. And all the voice said, "Wait, you can't do that." He looked around, there was a man covering us watching, and he said, "You might bring infection into the plant." And he proudly said, "I'm a shareholder of this company." You see that story? It was rare decades ago. It's more common now, but it's not prevalent enough. The Jamaica Stock Exchange is the premier institution to foster inclusion, engagement, and good returns for our people. Open to all, even those with limited funds to invest. Listing and trading on the Jamaica Stock Exchange has become a major stimulant of enterprise for businesses and individuals traditionally shut out of capital sources. This is an achievement of great significance in our aspirational journey as a country from a developing nation to a developed nation. The JSE is playing its role in facilitating a stronger economy, a higher standard of living for our people, building out advanced infrastructure, and supporting environmental sustainability. The inspiration of employee share ownership, improving corporate prospects through engagement. The brilliance of the Jamaica junior stock market, continuously inspiring entrepreneurship. The promise of the social stock exchange, and the ambition of the new green, sustainable, and sustainable linked bond market. That's a bit of a tongue twister, Marlene. Those all reduce the rough edges of the markets for good purpose. The Jamaica Stock Exchange has evolved from a narrow trading platform where the shuffling of investments by the established few took place. It has added over 127,000 JSE accounts over the last 5 years, bringing the total market participants to over 330,000. Now, today, the JSE is a dynamic facility for wealth creation, investor stimulation, sound management practices at more and more small businesses, and the prosperity of a widening swath of ordinary Jamaicans. This progression that we are all witnessing firsthand knows no terminus. This conference is intended to sharpen our focus and ignite more enthusiasm and trust. Trust is achieved if we constantly improve our market services through transparent customer relations and more extensive public education around how the stock exchange works and how we can enhance commerce and personal fortunes. Enthusiasm fostered by the relentless ambition and the acquisitiveness of the populace, finding an outlet and profit on the JSE trading floor, from schoolers to retirees, from people with a partner draw to the dreamers in the diaspora, enamored by memories of God. So, Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen, the Jamaica Stock Exchange continues to promote and position itself as an indispensable partner in achieving this nation's economic objectives. Our zeal is to bring the benefits of orderly access to capital and the rewards from equity participation to a critical mass of Jamaicans. This, I am convinced, will help our country navigate through its productivity crisis by tackling the binding constraints identified to productivity, by reducing inequality, and with it, the incentives for crime and corruption, by increasing people's sense of belonging, and with it, their motivation to actively participate and to innovate, and by showing people, at long last, the transformative benefits of economic growth and the true value of the education and skill development that are required to achieve it. Ladies and gentlemen, again, it is my pleasure to welcome you here. I'm happy to have you here. I'm looking forward to engaging with you over the course of the next few days. And I'm hoping that the connections that you make here over the next few days will inspire exponential growth. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you, Chairman, for your valuable insights. Tomorrow promises to kick off with a full morning of exciting sessions, including the much anticipated doing business in Cuba. Did you hear me? Yeah, doing business in Cuba, yeah. And of course, the launch of the green bond market. It's just one more example of how this conference delivers unmatched value and collaboration opportunities. Up next, the CEO of NCB Capital Markets, who will discuss harnessing the powers of data, revolutionizing investments with markets. Please welcome Angus.
The Most Honorable Dr. Andrew Holness, Prime Minister, Honorable Samuel Duggins, Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries, Marine Resources, Entrepreneurship, Cooperatives, and Creative, St. Kitts and Nevis. I'm very tempted to say Minister of Everything. I think that would cause some confusion. Ladies and gentlemen, as we gather to celebrate and reflect on the 20th anniversary of the JSE Regional Investments and Capital Markets Conference, we are also witnessing the changing of the guards of the Jamaica Stock Exchange. It would be remiss of me not to proceed without acknowledging, honoring, and saluting Dr. Marlene Street Forrest, Managing Director of the Jamaica Stock Exchange. She has led with distinction while defining her tenure as a period of transformation and many firsts. It was during the Street Forest era that the world had no choice but to acknowledge that the Jamaica Stock Exchange was ranked the #1 performing stock exchange in the world in 2015 and again in 2018. In fact, it was under her stewardship that this conference was inaugurated as a demonstration of her commitment to market education and growth of the capital markets. The ripple effect of this was that this conference then spawned the introduction of the Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana Capital Markets Conferences. Dr. Marlene Street Forrest, we salute you. Let us also extend an acknowledgement to the participants in this room as players in the capital markets and shapers of this conference. Collectively, we have used this conference over the past 20 years to shape the narratives impacting the capital markets locally and regionally. We have spent these 20 years planting and nurturing seeds that continue to bear fruit in our economies. Consider for a moment that provocative ideas such as the junior stock exchange, junior stock market, was given room to germinate in a hall like this and is now the standard bearer for similar exchanges regionally. Launched in 2009 to encourage investment in small and medium-sized enterprises in Jamaica, the junior market now boasts 46 listed companies, some of which have grown tremendously since listing. Some companies have grown through the incubator of the junior market, have now graduated to the main market. We have seen where the lessons learned and the legislation used from this critical element of the market in Jamaica was used to guide the creation of the SME market in Trinidad and Tobago. It took ownership from all aspects of the industry to work together to bring life and tangible outcomes of this conference over the years. And this is the aspect I want to focus on for the next few minutes. Over the last 2 decades, I have worked across the region, and based on my experience, I am of the opinion that Jamaica's capital market is the deepest and most sophisticated capital market in the Caribbean. While on a global scale, our capital markets aren't considered efficient, Jamaica's capital market is the most efficient in the region. As broker-dealers, we have to take ownership of our markets, and we have to go against anything that will negatively affect our market's reputation and integrity. There is motherland coming to save us if we screw up. This is why we must adopt the ownership mindset towards the continuous development and safeguarding of our capital markets. What does this mean in tangible terms? You will recall that in 2008, the global financial crisis highlighted how broker-dealers played a pivotal role in amplifying risk in the financial system. Their aggressive trading of complex securities like mortgage-backed assets and reliance on excessive leverage created vulnerabilities. When the housing market collapsed, many broker-dealers faced liquidity crises, sparking widespread panic and contributing to the financial system's meltdown. This in turn led to tighter regulations to curb risky behaviors in the future. We, as broker-dealers in Jamaica and in the Caribbean, cannot let this happen to our capital markets. In Jamaica, the retail investor is a significant participant in our markets. They rely on us to sift through complexities, identify risk, and endorse investments that uphold the principles of transparency, accountability, and sustainability. Retail investors should be able to rely on the advice of their brokers. As such, we as broker-dealers must always act as the first layer of adjudication, the first filter, the first underwriter. Some argue that this is not the role of the broker, and the market ought to decide what degree of risk it takes. And in a perfect environment, perhaps there's an argument to be made. But in our capital markets, where the retail segment is so involved, I am of the opinion that we as broker-dealers have the burden of responsibility to make sure that we think long, that we think for a country, and in so doing, make sure that we act responsibly in what we bring to market. By doing so, we do more than safeguard individual transactions. We preserve the credibility of the entire system, and this is something we must own as broker-dealers. Our role as we move to the next decade will become even more critical as the financial markets continue to evolve in an increasingly dynamic environment filled with new trends, pressures, and opportunities. For example, the government of Jamaica will not be the serial issuer of capital market assets like years gone by. Jamaica's economic metrics continue to improve, and improving credit ratings are a testament to this. So the domestic capital markets will have to manufacture new assets to live off of, and this brings significant opportunity for further development and sophistication. Broker-dealers must work with both public and private issuers to structure deals responsibly and sustainably, where the wealth creation ambitions of the investor lie at the heart of our actions. Again, the Jamaican market continues to lead in this regard, as we have seen with the public assets being brought to market in recent times. For example, back in 2020, the story of Trans-Jamaica Highway being added to the market is certainly one for the history books, where the average Jamaican who participated in the IPO and held it since then saw a 205.7% return, basically triple-fold from the IPO. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the kind of innovative and bold, yet solid approach needed to excite the market and provide buoyancy even as we look to the future. The Honorable Faval Williams, Minister of Finance and the Public Service, recently announced that we are one step closer to raising the capital limit on junior market listings from $500 million to $750 million. In the last budget speech, the Honorable Nigel Clark, the then Minister of Finance, would have disclosed several fundraising initiatives by the government of Jamaica. The Norman Manley International Airport securitization was one. Others are expected to come in 2025, and I encourage us all to listen carefully to Prime Minister Holness when he speaks later, and to the Honorable Faval Williams, who joins us tomorrow morning. These government-related transactions will buoy the domestic capital markets in 2025 and will ensure that investors gain access to some of the best proxies of Jamaica's progress and continued trajectory. In like manner, broker-dealers have the responsibility to ensure private issues are vetted to produce a sustainable return to investors, even while being robust and sustainable at their core. To put it plainly, as broker-dealers, we need to exercise a level of responsibility to ensure that the companies brought to market are fit and proper to go public. It is this, ladies and gentlemen, that will begin to attract the global capital needed to position the regional markets as a formidable force internationally. Even as these opportunities come to market, as broker-dealers, we must ensure our clients are given the tools and information to adequately participate. How will we package and position these opportunities as formidable wealth creation opportunities? And how will we ensure the base of the market is sufficiently broader with varying options to suit the appetites of different investors. How is NCB Capital Markets playing its role in this regard? Ladies and gentlemen, I have the distinct honor of announcing that NCB Capital Markets has reaffirmed our commitment to being the title sponsor of this conference for the next 5 years. Being fairly new to my role as CEO of NCB Capital Markets and as a director of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, and having made Jamaica my home for the last 13 months, I try to bring a fresh pair of eyes and ears, and it is my intention to use the office that I hold to make sure that this conference continues to evolve so that every year it is more impactful than the year before. Truth is, as broker-dealers, we are capital allocators. To me, NCB Capital Markets' sponsorship of this conference means that we've allocated capital, and thus we are very vested with an ownership mindset. And with this mindset, we have to ensure that our stakeholders benefit from our involvement. For instance, one aspiration would be to have more issuers and potential issuers attend, and for us broker-dealers to demonstrate, perhaps through transaction showcasing, how capital markets are a viable option to traditional banking. To this end, we at NCB would endorse and champion the introduction of an element or elements of this conference that further educate the markets about the types of deals, both debt and equity, and celebrate the innovation captured in some of these opportunities. NCB Capital Markets, and by extension the NCB Financial Group, continues to put at its forefront a mandate to make wealth creation the strategic priority of our business. In 2019, we celebrated the launch of our Go IPO platform, with which revolutionized and digitalized the IPO application process. We extended that capability to the Trinidad and Tobago market, which then saw us executing the first SME IPO in 5 years in that market in 2024. This ethos of wealth creation being made accessible to the average investor has driven us even further. We want to see more participation in capital markets going forward, and so we are making wealth and investments easy to access and understand. Throughout the course of this conference, you will hear more about our exciting new tool to democratize access to the investor education by the average investor. We will be launching a new WhatsApp-based investment risk profiler and asset allocator in the market. It is our hope that by making investment choices easy to access by Mr. Joe while waiting on a bus, or for that young professional just entering the market, that wealth creation will be demystified for the next generation. We laud the government of Jamaica for the bold stances to move the capital markets forward through the increase in the capital base ceiling of companies waiting to list on the junior market. There is no doubt that the broker-dealer community, and most importantly, potential entrants to the stock market, will feel more incentivized to participate in the market given these two postures. As a result, NCB Capital Markets are excited and mobilized to help the business community to tap this opportunity going forward, whether through APOs or IPOs. In closing, while we pause to reflect on the past 20 years of this conference, let us look forward as we envision a future where the broker-dealer community truly owns the goal of securing the investability of Jamaica. We want to make Jamaica investable from a global perspective. As we work together to secure this reality, and as one of the individuals leading the industry, I envision a day where capital in Switzerland or Dubai or similar economies can find a home here in Jamaica and the Caribbean region. There is no motherland coming to save us if we screw up. This is why we must adopt the ownership mindset towards the development of the capital markets. We are here in this position today because those before us made more good than bad decisions, and we step on their shoulders to rise to a new level. We have to own this vision going forward because it's ours, and we have to think long too, and to make sure those that step on our shoulders tomorrow do so in a better position than us today, and do so with pride, knowing that we did a fantastic job in setting the stage for them. It is my hope that broker-dealers always act in the best interest of Jamaica and the other Caribbean territories, because as people who are indigenous to our region, we must adopt the ownership mindset, and in so doing, always act in the best interest of our stakeholders, investors, and citizens. Thank you.
Thank you too, Ms. Young, for that forward-looking presentation. And kudos to NCB for spotting a good thing when they see it. 5 more years, that's good news. Now, ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is a true friend of Jamaica. Tonight, he's here to help us navigate the global financial landscape at a pivotal moment in history. Following the inauguration last night of one of the most talked about US presidents, the world is watching closely. What will a Trump-led America mean for Jamaica's economy, opportunities, and financial strategies? Those are big questions. To help us unpack the trends, policies, and possibilities, please welcome the Managing Director and Head of Emerging Markets, Fixed Income, and the Wealth Management at Jefferies, our good friend, Gregory Fisher.
Good evening and Happy New Year to all. On behalf of my colleagues at Jefferies, once again, a heartfelt welcome to this year's Jamaica Stock Exchange. The Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica. The Honorable Mr. Diggins St. Kitts. Steve Whittingham, Chairman of the Jamaica Stock Exchange. My dear friend, Marlene Street Forrest, and other honored dignitaries, guests here this evening, and all other protocols fully acknowledged. Welcome. Tonight marks a special evening for both me as well as the Jamaica Stock Exchange. 2 decades ago, Marlene Street first approached me about the idea of having a special Jamaica Stock Exchange conference whereby important topics could be discussed over a period of 2 days. Important topics surrounding and affecting the newly evolving sector here in Jamaica back in 2005. Marlene asked if I would entertain being a lead sponsor some 20 years ago and help in the formation of what has now become a yearly event that so many look forward to. I guess, as they say, the rest is history, but once again, it's my pleasure to stand up here after all these terrific years in the past. And Marlene, I can't thank you from the bottom of my heart anymore. Thank you. As we embark here in 2025, it brings great solace to this conference, as always, with some shine and some new rays of hope and excitement during these challenging global times that we all now face. At Jefferies, we continue to remain a partner of this terrific conference, as well as being totally committed to the entire Caribbean region. It has always been an honor over the past 20 years to give a few remarks during the opening ceremony of this conference. And it's always a pleasure to once again be down here in Kingston, the city I personally call my second home for nearly 4 decades. As Managing Director of Jefferies, my mandate is to serve our clients with the absolute best we have to offer as a firm. At Jefferies, we continue to pool our talent and our resources to create the best workable solutions for our clients. The global markets continue to evolve at light speed that I have not seen in 41 years that I've been in investment business. But at Jefferies, we take pride in creating new opportunities for our clients, and ways of doing business. At Jeffries, we are talent-driven, we are visionaries with core values, but most of all, we are client-focused. In short, our primary focus is to deliver for our clients throughout the globe. Before I dive right on in a little bit about the current global markets, and I don't know if I'm going to address all the issues about the new administration due to compliance with Jeffries, I do have to always tell you that these are my own opinions, and they may or may not reflect those of Jeffries LLC. Anybody that's been here in the past.
This is extremely important. This is going to give us some ideas as to what is happening in the global market. Listen very carefully here.
I was reminded that 2025 is the Chinese Year of the Snake. And given these immense volatile markets since the end of last year, that label seems rather fitting to me. It is perceived that the years of the snake bring obstacles and generally prove to be transformative. Considering the prior years with this very same label was 1929, 1941, 1953, 1965, 77, 89, and 2001 were all years of either war, economic maladies, recession, or political or financial instability. The average move in the S&P in the past years of the year of the snake was down 5%. So let's all hope and pray that we are going to take that head off the snake. I'm hoping for the best, and I'll let you in on a little secret, however. I am a historian at heart, and I'm a bit superstitious as well. Regardless of what 2025 will bring from both an overall economic perspective, I would like to read a quote in Barron's a few weeks ago. And I quote, "Parties, after all, are often followed by deep hangovers." After 2 years of stellar U.S. stock performance on the heels of AI craze, I believe that as seasoned investors, we should be expecting far less momentum trading and should be expecting far more normalized returns here in 2025. I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm a bit doubtful that the S&P can post a three-peat of 20-plus returns since 3 years ago. Putting the year of snake aside for a moment, one thing is a given. The U.S. Fed will continue to normalize rates, maybe a bit slower than we all thought a few months ago, but they will still be lowering rates, and that's exactly why I continue to believe that locking in yields when the Fed is accommodating has always proven to be a great trade. However, given all the moving parts to this uncharted global landscape, patience will also be needed no matter what sort of securities you feel comfortable owning when it comes to investing in general here in 2025. From my perspective, it seems that investors willing to play the markets today seem to be rationalizing that they will never sell because of the types of returns they've experienced over the past few years. However, from my perspective, current earnings growth in the U.S. are just a little too lofty, so I continue to remain in a defensive posture because of my own past experience. To me, it really seems like deja vu all over again. Memories I personally saw during the internet craze of the late 90s that led to the dot-com bubble. The internet, like AI, was a real game changer for sure. But when the markets price in all the upside valuations at once, history does tend to repeat itself. True, the AI stocks are real companies with solid earnings growth, unlike the internet companies back in the 90s. But the market's primal emotion seems unrealistic and unsustainable levels, in my opinion. In other words, the current market to me are pricing in most assets to be riskless. Sure, AI is indeed a real game changer, but all the expected revenue generation has quickly been built into current equity valuations even before AI has really hit its stride. There are many other seasoned market veterans like me who are currently warning investors not to expect equity returns topping 20% like we saw in the last 2 years, but few are ready to call an end to the AI-fueled stock boom. Listen, I'm not even willing to call that end myself. I think I'm a believer the near-term upside with these stocks are great, but the bulging valuations are tough to be sustainable. I have learned the hard way that when momentum markets prevail over fundamentals, corrections can be torrid and quick, just like I witnessed back in 2000. And for this very reason, I do remain a bit pensive. I've seen this rodeo before, and I probably will never participate in these speculative environments to the upside. But I can tell you one thing, I will remain insulated and defensive, so when the markets revert back to the mean, as they always tend to do, I will be enjoying some very restful nights in Atlanta while others lie awake. I underscore my thoughts here by saying many analysts on the street, in my opinion, have set the bar a bit too high in 2025. Put simply, to me, bonds look cheap, stocks look a bit expensive here in the early trading days of 2025. Finally, a little history that I have personally witnessed is in order. Ronald Reagan got elected as president in 1980. And I see a lot of you are probably going to have to Google that out there. Just a few short years before I entered the business. The S&P shot up nearly 9% in the ensuing weeks since the election, with the animal spirits running wild, much like they did when President Trump won the US election in last November. However, the S&P 500 peaked soon after Reagan took office and subsequently rolled over down 10% just a few weeks after he took the oath. And just as in the case today, Reagan assumed the office of the presidency on the heels of a stubborn inflation that had consumed the prior administration. It went down actually another 10%, making an official bear market in the first 6 months of the new Reagan administration. By the way, like today, if I would have told you that back in 1980 when Reagan took the oath, they would have took me out on a gurney to the insane asylum. I'm giving you this history lesson because it was kind of scary to me how President Trump was compared to Reagan when he rang the bell at the opening of the New York Stock Exchange before the holidays. It goes to show you that nobody, not even the toughest presidents, are larger and meaner than Mother Nature. Rather, history has always taught me that nothing can stop a normalized market cycle that always reverts to the mean. The US economy is indeed strong, and hopefully the new Trump administration will prevail in the long run, just as Reagan did. But 2025 still looks a bit precarious to me. And as a side note, if you had bought solid bonds back when Reagan took office, it would have been the trade of a decade. So I think stocks will not have the hefty return that we saw in 2023 and 24. But for those that do buy stocks, stock selection here in 25 will be crucial to one's respective portfolio. As far as bonds, I'm a believer that the Fed will see weakening data appear towards the end of Q1 and pivot again, and subsequently they'll end up cutting more, in my opinion, than their two rates that have been previously telegraphed for this year. I believe that if an investor has patience, solid fixed income securities will be the trade here in this new year. Regardless, stay utterly diversified and defensive, to me, remains paramount in these types of uncharted waters. I do recognize that all exponentially rising markets go further than I always think, and obviously that this one is no different than others. I saw this in the past, but I also learned that these sorts of manias do not correct sideways either. And the current massive equity exposures out there, in my humble opinion, scares me. It only makes this ongoing soft landing narrative that much more a fantasy more than an inevitable reality. Again, artificial intelligence is indeed a real game changer, but this utter sense of complacency and herd mentality has me unnerved currently. And with a huge concentration in the silos of equity space, it is for this reason that I do fully remain a bond bull. If you go back to April 2008, the then Fed cut minus 25 bips, but signaled a pauses were coming. So they made that hawkish cut that we just saw back in December of this year, of 24. After April 2028, the Fed did not cut again for another 5 months on the mistaken belief that everything was aligned properly with reviewing their dual mandate. The hawkish cut sent the 10-year bond up 50 basis points and was truly painful back then, as it has been in the beginning here up till today in 2025. However, if you bought fixed income and bonds back then and were patient, that would outperform the S&P 500. Finally, I'm not suggesting do not buy stocks. Believe it or not, and not to diversify. On the contrary, I'm a full believer in portfolio diversification. But given this frothy valuation, to me, it makes far more sense to focus on solid stocks with dividends, as well as security-centric fixed income, thus creating a well-balanced defensive portfolio after these past few years of record returns. Look, when I see countries such as Germany, I just came back from China, the UK, they all currently have economic challenges. It's been my experience it's only a matter of time before these sorts of maladies spread somewhat through the globe. And from my vantage point, the US market seems to be getting a little tired in the beginning days of 2025. So remember, when you see volatility that we've seen, have respect for what the markets are trying to tell you. That sort of volatility is not normal. Now, I'd like to make some comments about Jamaica, which is the favorite part of me being up here, and the rest of the emerging markets. Emerging market debt had what I flippantly describe as an okay year in 2024. The MD Global Diversified Benchmark returned a positive 6.54% for the year. With the underlying treasury yields rising, the sovereign credit spreads tightening moderately, allowing for positive overall total return for the index. However, it was somewhat bifurcated market by ways of credit quality. Investment grade returns, which are relatively more linked to US treasuries, were basically flat. The high yield component of the benchmark returned an impressive plus 13%. Junk rated countries emerging from debt restructuring, similar to where Jamaica was 10 years ago, were the top performers. These are countries like Argentina, Ecuador, Sri Lanka, Zambia, among others. Unfortunately, or fortunately, Jamaica no longer fits that high yielding category. Although still rated low double B by the major agencies, all of these ratings have positive outlooks and are likely to go higher in the future. I would be remiss if I did not mention that in addition to lowering its post-COVID debt to GDP from 94% to 73%, a feat that most countries, including developed countries, have yet to carry out, Jamaica also named its first female Minister of Finance, the Honorable Favour Williams. Given all these facts, the market is already pricing Jamaica at or near investment grade. And this part is important. Jamaica international bonds are behaving more like their investment grade counterparties these days than the rest of the emerging markets. So further spread compression will be difficult. Jamaica bonds returns are more likely to be governed by the underlying movement in US treasuries going forward. The bad news is that Jamaica bonds are not currently attractive to international investors right now, given their tight spreads, despite positive economic policy trajectory and an NIR fast approaching $5 billion. The good news is that Jamaica bonds are now more to be likely viewed by the international community as a real safe haven for investors. I've been coming down here for over 35 years. I've seen a lot, including the financial crisis, restructurings, and I don't say that lightly, that statement, that where Jamaica is considered now a safe haven credit. That has taken some real heavy lifting. What an accomplishment to Jamaica's ongoing fiscal stewardship and its impressive leadership. I do think the marketplace will welcome more corporate and quasi-sovereign issuance out of Jamaica, and given the most recent positive positive transactions, as Agnes alluded to, surrounding Kingston Manley Airport. Few could disagree with my assessment here. Finally, there could also be some more demand from international investors for Jamaica dollar paper, as Jamaica's monetary and fiscal policy settings continue to be very solid under the current administration. You have all heard me say this in the past, and I'm not being political, but kudos to you, Mr. Prime Minister. I certainly have rambled on long enough, and I made a remark to the Prime Minister that we usually see one another in airplanes, not here in person. Many times we cross paths while traveling. But on behalf of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, as well as my colleagues at Jefferies, I trust you will enjoy the next few days. I'm excited about this conference, and I hope we all continue to thrive this conference going forward on the heels of what Dr. Marlene Street Forrest has created. Thank you.
And thank you too, Gregory Fisher, for your usual thought-provoking insights. And of course, over the next